In the late 70s and early 80s, a musical DIY fire ignited a wave of creativity. Some stuck close to punk's grit, while others went more accessible or more experimental, and several just flat out weird. This episode dives into the aftermath, where the edges fray, the rules dissolve, and the spirit of new wave takes on an eclectic array of new forms. So stick around, because today we're gonna discuss losing your bassist and guitarist after 2 hit albums, out-weirding Bowie on SNL, and predicting online dating decades before Tinder. This is New Wave Starter Pack 1981, Part 4. New Wave grew out of punk's collapse, channeling its restless energy into something brighter, weirder, and more playful. Instead of raw aggression, it brought catchy melodies, synths, and bold style, swapping leather and safety pins for neon colors and ironic cool. In the US, bands like The Cars, Oingo Boingo, and Missing Persons gave punk a quirky twist with funk grooves and electric flair. Meanwhile, in the UK, acts like Japan, Gary Newman, and Soft Cell leaned into cold synths and futuristic vibes that fit Britain's post-industrial mood. When MTV launched in '81, New Wave's sharp visuals and hybrid sound made it a perfect fit for the video age. But New Wave was never just one sound. It ranged from glossy pop and experimental art rock to touches of synth pop, jangle pop, even opera. In this episode, we're diving into 1981 with the most eclectic mix of albums yet. Some iconic, others hidden gems, all showing just how wide New Wave could stretch. That's right, after 3 1981 episodes covering 15 albums, there's still more on my record wall to squeeze into a new video. Okay, let's do this. First record today, Pretenders 2. Pretenders 2 is the second studio album by British rock band The Pretenders, released by Sire Records in August 1981. Going into the start of the year, The Pretenders were in a rare position. Their debut album had been a critical and commercial hit. Chrissie Hynde had become an unexpected star, and the group had helped cement the blend of punk bite and new wave melody that defined the turn of the decade. This sophomore effort was essentially carrying the weight of validating all that early success. It was recorded over the first half of 1981 in London with producer Chris Thomas, who had overseen their debut as well as records by Roxy Music and Sex Pistols. The band's lineup, Chrissie Hynde, James Honeyman Scott on guitar, Pete Farndon on bass, and Martin Chambers on drums was intact, and the chemistry between them was still electric. Their parent label, Warner Brothers, was eager for a follow-up to capitalize on the group's momentum, yet the band had already burned through some of their strongest songs on EPs and singles between albums. Hynde herself was navigating newfound fame while trying to keep the Pretenders' identity sharp, balancing raw rock and roll instincts with the polish expected of a rising new wave act. Stories from the time suggest that the group was pulling long, tense studio hours, but Hynde's iron will kept the ship pointed forward. Perhaps because of this pressure, the record does feel a bit safe and samey, albeit without as many standouts as their debut. The album kicks off with The Adulteress, a snarling rocker that sets the tone with its mix of swagger and mid-tempo groove. Hynde's delivery is sharp, spitting out lines with both menace and allure, while Honeyman Scott's guitar bites underneath.
That's my mystery. I'm the adulteress.
Message of Love, released as a single in early '81, is one of the record's most enduring tracks. Built on a muscular riff and Hynde's half-sung, half-declaimed vocal, it has become a calling card of the Pretenders' sound. Romantic, yet cynical. Playful, yet tough.
Talk to me, darling, with a message of love.
Talk of the Town is a shimmering, melodic track full of longing and reflection. Hind captures the ache of unspoken connection, about someone admired from afar yet never truly known. In 1998, American group Garbage would release their song Special, containing a vocal interpolation of the lyric from Talk of the Town, as tribute with full blessing from Hind. The song's wistful tone and chiming guitars make it one of the band's most enduring and tender songs.
It's the talk of the town.
At the time of release, Pretenders 2 received mixed reviews. Some critics felt the album didn't quite match the fresh impact of the debut, accusing it of retreading similar ground, even including another Ray Davies cover. Others further called out its unevenness, while a few outlets praised individual tracks while questioning the overall cohesion. Commercially, however, it performed well, reaching number 7 in the UK and cracking the top 10 in the US, a significant achievement for a band that was still carving out its place on the international stage. Over the decades, it's been looked back at far kinder. What once felt like a rushed follow-up is now appreciated as a snapshot of the original lineup at full force, just before tragedy struck. Within a year, both Honeyman Scott and Farndon would be dead as victims of drug-related circumstances, leaving Hind to rebuild the Pretenders around her voice and vision. That knowledge gives Pretenders 2 a bittersweet aura. It captures the last moment of the band's classic four-piece chemistry. Today, tracks like Message of Love and Talk of the Town are seen as essential pieces of the Pretenders' legacy. It may not have had the lightning in a bottle impact of their debut, but Pretenders 2 stands as a crucial chapter in one of New Wave's most enduring stories. 2018 reissue, inner sleeve, and here comes a guilty pleasure. Next record, Men at Work, Business as Usual. In the early 1980s, few bands burst onto the global stage as explosively as Men at Work. Their debut album, Business as Usual, released in November 1981 in Australia and a few months later internationally, was their first full-length studio effort and set them on a path to international superstardom. Recorded at Richmond Recorders in Melbourne with producer Peter McClan, the sessions captured the quirky blend of reggae rhythms, sharp pop hooks, and satirical lyricism that would become the group's signature. The band's lineup featured Colin Hay on vocals and guitar, Greg Ham on keyboards, flute, saxophone, and fiddly things according to the liner notes, Ron Streichert on guitar, John Reese on bass, and Jerry Spicer on drums. Together, they crafted an album that managed to be both parts playfully catchy and musically sophisticated. The recording showed off the band's mix of influences. Colin Hay had been writing for years, blending his Scottish roots with his life in Australia and adding sharp social humor. Several songs had already won over local club crowds with their quirky style and reggae-inspired grooves. Producer Peter McClan pushed them to tighten the arrangements and polish their sound without losing the quirky personality that set them apart from other new wave acts. Greg Ham's contributions, especially his flute parts, were particularly crucial, giving the songs this special sauce which helped them stand out on the radio. Several tracks quickly emerged as classics. Who Can It Be Now became one of the album's defining songs, with its paranoid lyrics and saxophone hook, making it instantly recognizable. Hayes' vocal delivery, a mix of theatrical flair and dry wit, captured the absurdity of modern anxieties, while the reggae-styled rhythm kept it light on its feet. 21 years later, the song would reach a new generation as one of the most iconic radio tunes in the PlayStation 2 game Grand Theft Auto Vice City.
Who can it be now? Who can it be now?
Amongst its catchy hooks, Be Good Johnny has some interesting lyrical moments. Are you going to play football this year, John? Nah. Oh, well, you must be going to play cricket this year then. Are you, Johnny? Nah, nah, nah. "Boy, you sure are a funny kid, Johnny, but I like you. So tell me, what kind of boy are you, John?" Told from the perspective of a distracted schoolboy, it further highlighted Hayes' storytelling abilities and the band's willingness to take on unusual lyrical angles. Down Under, the band's global anthem, showcased their knack for blending humor and social commentary. Beneath its sing-along chorus and flute riff, the song offered sly observations about Australian identity, consumerism, and cultural stereotypes. The song remains a perennial favorite on Australian radio and television, and topped the charts in the US and UK simultaneously on release. Men at Work would revive it via a performance at the closing ceremony of the 2000 Summer Olympics in Sydney. And 40 plus years on, it's still blasting out of supermarket PAs and dentist offices. More than just a novelty, it was sharp satire disguised as a pop hit. When Business as Usual was released, it unsurprisingly topped the charts Down Under for a staggering 9 months. When released internationally in 1982, it stormed the US Top 200, where it held the #1 spot for a 15 consecutive week run, beating albums by established giants like Michael Jackson and The Police. For a debut album, this was nothing short of remarkable. Critical reception at the time was generally positive, though some reviewers dismissed the band as a quirky novelty act. The humor, accented vocals, and flute-driven hooks made Men at Work stand out, but also made them harder to categorize. Over time, Business as Usual has been recognized for its place as a key new wave album of the early 80s. Its blend of reggae, pop, and rock still feels unique, and its standout tracks remain catchy, clever takes on culture and everyday life. Today, it's remembered not just for epic sax and flutes, but for bringing new wave into the mainstream while giving Australia one of its first true global exports. Original Canadian press, inner sleeve, Down Under 7-inch, and now for something completely different, Altered Images, Happy Birthday. By 1981, new wave had splintered into countless directions, and while some acts like Men at Work chased pop success, others leaned into their post-punk roots. Altered Images, a Scottish group fronted by the youthful and charismatic Claire Grogan, managed to straddle both worlds. Their debut album, Happy Birthday, released in September 1981, was a bold and bright underground favorite, arriving just a year after the band formed in Glasgow. With its mix of jagged post-punk guitars, playful lyrics, and Grogan's girlish vocals, it stood out as a quirky and eccentric slice of the era. The band had caught the attention of none other than Susie and the Banshees early on, opening for them on their tour in 1980. That connection helped shape their initial sound, dark, angular, and indebted to post-punk experimentation. However, Altered Images wanted to carve their own distinctly playful niche. For the recording of Happy Birthday, they enlisted bassist Steve Severin of the Banshees to produce, giving the record a spiky, gothic undertone, mixing with the band's art school eccentricity and undeniable hooks. The centerpiece is, of course, the title track, Happy Birthday. With its twinkly marimba intro sounding not unlike the Banshees' Hong Kong Garden, as well as the chirping sing-song delivery, it became an instant hit in the UK, climbing all the way to #2 on the singles chart. Grogan's childlike vocal style divided critics at the time. Some found it charming, but others grating. But this ditty was impossible to ignore.
If they want me, if they want me, and I will shoot, and I will shoot.
Beyond the title track, there are several key songs that showcase the band's range. Love and Kisses plays with jittery rhythms and darkly comic lyrics, demonstrating their post-punk sensibility. Beckoning Strings is moodier, leaning into atmosphere and texture rather than pop accessibility, a mixture of banshees and Joy Division hooks and theatricality that eventually give way to a playfully upbeat second half. You're just a puppet suspended in midair, dictated by those who pull your beckoning strings. Listen to the end to hear Claire imitating birdsong in the studio. Upon release, the critical response was lukewarm. Some praised Altered Images for their originality and willingness to fuse darker tones with bright, ironic pop. Others dismissed the band as lightweight or gimmicky, with particular focus on Grogan's vocals. Commercially, however, the title track's success made the album a hit, bringing the band attention from both the UK music press, the pop TV shows as well, giving them a solid start as one of the more unusual acts in the new wave scene. Nowadays, the album is seen as a smart mix of post-punk's darker edge with brighter ironic style. Grogan's vocals, once criticized, are now valued for the mix of innocence and wit which gave the band its character. While Happy Birthday didn't reach the global heights of Blondie or the Human League, it still stands out as a playful and creative early 80s new wave debut. Today, it's remembered not only for its title track, but as an album that captured the oddball spirit of the moment when pop could be strange, edgy, and fun, all at the same time. Original US pressing, inner sleeve. And now it's weirdo outsider record time. Klaus Nomi. Moving into a new decade, new wave had proven it could absorb all kinds of influences. Punk, reggae, funk, even jazz. But Klaus Nomi's self-titled debut album, released that year on RCA, was something else entirely. It was his first full-length record, and it defied easy categorization. A mixture of classical opera arias, kitschy pop covers, and futuristic synth arrangements. Born Klaus Sperber in Germany, Nomi had relocated to New York City in the 1970s and became a fixture in the city's East Village art scene, playing in popular venues such as Danceteria, Hurrahs, and the Mud Club. Besides unusual costumes, the shows would also include dancers and elaborate sets. His striking countertenor voice, otherworldly stage persona, and love of theatrical performance quickly made him a cult figure. By the time he had entered the studio in 1980, he'd already gained notoriety from a show-stealing appearance with David Bowie on Saturday Night Live in 1979, where his strange, alien image and soaring falsetto caught the attention of a much wider audience. Recording took place in New York with a group of producers and arrangers eager to capture Nomi's hybrid vision. Ron Johnson and Man Parrish were among the key figures who helped shape the sound, leaning into early synthesizer textures while leaving space for Nomi's operatic voice. The album was part cabaret review, part art experiment, part pop record. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Nomi wasn't trying to make slick radio hits. Instead, he leaned fully into his theatrical instincts. Stories from the session suggest he was uncompromising about including classical repertoire alongside campy pop. He wanted to blur the line between high art and kitsch, and the result was an album unlike anything else on the shelves in 1981. Several tracks stand out as emblematic of Nomi's unusual approach. His take on You Don't Own Me sounds like it's beamed in from another planet, taking the classic 60s anthem of independence and twisting it into a campy, operatic, space-age spectacle.
Don't own me. Don't say I can't play with other boys.
Lightning Strikes, a cover of the Lou Christie pop hit, flips bubblegum into something surreal, a sci-fi rock opera meets doo-wop daydream, featuring thunderclaps, soaring falsetto, and that signature Nomi theatrical flair. It's super camp, soaring through the cosmos. Nomi's haunting rendition of Cold Song, adapted from Purcell's King Arthur, is the centerpiece of the album and remains one of his most famous performances. Sung in his high countertenor over icy synth washes, it captures both fragility and grandeur, as if an opera ghost were trapped inside a new wave nightclub. Upon its release, the album baffled critics. Some dismissed it as an avant-garde stunt, while others praised its daring originality. In the US, it barely dented the mainstream, but in Europe, especially in Nomi's native Germany, the record gained a strong cult following. Commercial success may have been limited, but the album carved out a unique space in the early 80s landscape. At a time when new wave was often about polish and commercial crossover, Nomi's debut was defiantly strange, a reminder of the underground roots of the movement. In the decades since, Klaus Nomi has been reevaluated as a pioneering work of performance art in pop music. His fearless blending of opera, kitsch, and electronics anticipated later genre-bending acts and proved that new wave could be as much about theater as it was about sound. Tragically, Nomi's career was cut short. He died in 1983 from complications related to AIDS, one of the first prominent figures in the music world to succumb during the crisis. That knowledge lends this debut an even greater sense of poignancy. Today, the album is celebrated not only as a cult classic, but as a brave, eccentric statement that expanded the possibilities of what new wave could be. This is a reissue, and her sleeve. Final record today on the subject of expanding the possibilities of new wave. Kraftwerk, Computer World. Sure, this one's a controversial pick, typically filed under synth or electropop, but stay with me here. By 1981, Kraftwerk were essentially the Beatles of electronic music. Just as the Beatles reshaped what pop and rock could be, Kraftwerk did the same for electronic music, laying down the foundation that countless genres would build on, such as today's hip-hop, techno, EDM, and earlier genres like synth pop and new wave. Kraftwerk's sleek electronic minimalism was foundational to new wave, laying down the futuristic edge as a blueprint that New Order or the Human League would follow. But on Computer World, Kraftwerk leaned even harder into the new wave aesthetic, pairing their icy electronics with catchy, almost playful melodies, proving they could be just as pop savvy as their new wave descendants. Released in May 1981 as their 8th studio album, Computer World followed 1978's The Man Machine and 77's Trans-Europe Express. Where those records explored themes of mechanization, travel, and identity, Computer World focused squarely on the rise of digital technology, a prescient subject at the dawn of the personal computer era. The album was recorded at Kraftwerk's famous Kling Klang studio in Dusseldorf, a high-tech workshop where every instrument was customized or built from scratch. Ralph Hooter and Florian Schneider worked alongside longtime collaborators Karl Bartos and Wolfgang Flür, using sequencers, drum machines, and early vocoders to craft sounds that were at once futuristic and minimalist. Unlike some of their earlier, more austere work, Computer World embraced warmth and rhythm, frequently flirting with danceable, often funky grooves. Kraftwerk's painstaking perfectionism was fully at play here. Sounds were tested, refined, and sometimes thrown out and rebuilt entirely to meet the band's uncompromising vision. Their self-imposed isolation in Kling Klang only reinforced the myth of Kraftwerk as robotic inventors shaping the future of music. It's hard to pick standouts because, to me, every track is essential, but I'll give it a go. Numbers is a minimalist, hypnotic track that turns the simple act of counting in different languages into a futuristic groove. Equal parts a math lesson and a dance floor anthem, this track should be played to preschoolers the world over. The fact that Kraftwerk never appeared on Sesame Street is one of the great missteps of the early 80s. Pocket Calculator contributed to this era's most recognizable image of the band with its playful use of electronic tones imitating the bleeps of a calculator and lyrics celebrating everyday technology. The band frequently performed it live on actual calculators modified as instruments, underscoring their playful yet prophetic vision.
I'm controlling and composing.
And speaking of prophecy, Computer Love is one of the album's most striking pieces. Beneath its gentle synth melody lies a reflection on loneliness and human connection in the digital age, a theme that feels even more relevant decades later. I call this number for a data date. I don't know what to do. I need a rendezvous. Of all the Nostradamus-level predictions Kraftwerk made, human relationships through computers feels perhaps the most relevant in this ever dystopian age of chatbots and AI girlfriends. On release, Computer World received widespread acclaim from critics who praised its conceptual clarity and sonic innovation. It performed well commercially in Europe, charting strongly in Germany and the UK, though its impact in the States was initially more underground. Still, the singles Pocket Calculator and Computer Love gained airplay, and the album was quickly recognized as a forward-looking piece of work. Where earlier Kraftwerk albums had sometimes been regarded as curiosities, Computer World positioned them as cultural commentators on the digital age. One interesting tidbit at this time is that the Computer Love single was released with the model from 1978's The Man Machine on the B-side, and many DJs in America played the B-side over the single, leading to it becoming a stateside hit 3 years on, rubbing shoulders on playlists with new wave contemporaries the song had initially inspired. Today, Computer World is seen as one of Kraftwerk's masterpieces, right up there with Trans-Europe Express and The Man Machine. Its impact stretches across hip-hop, house, techno, synth-pop, and new wave. More broadly, the album's themes, digital communication, surveillance, human-computer relationships, feel astonishingly prescient, making Kraftwerk seem less like a band of their time and more like prophets of the information age. Computer World closed Kraftwerk's most fertile creative period on a high note. While they would continue to tour and release material in the decades that followed, it remains the last universally acknowledged classic of their discography. For new wave, it stood as a reminder that the genre wasn't just about fashion or catchy hooks. It could also be about confronting the technological future head on. Few albums from '81 sound as modern today as Computer World, which is perhaps the greatest testament to Kraftwerk's vision. I think this one's an unofficial pressing. This one's a reissue. Comes with this huge booklet of photos, lyrics, graphics, cling clang, robots, inner sleeve, pocket calculator backed with numbers, La Calculadora de Basilio. Got this one in Mexico. Computer Welt and Nummern. Very haggard sleeve, I know, but it was only $1 or so. So that's gonna do it for today. I'm gonna link below a clip of Klaus Nomi backing up Bowie on SNL, Kraftwerk performing live on the Computer World Tour, along with some other goodies. If you enjoy this video, kindly give it a thumbs up and a hype. And consider subscribing so you don't miss out on any of my upcoming new wave or artist-specific videos. Are you familiar with all the records I covered? What are your favorite new wave releases of 1981? Let me know below, and be sure to check out the rest of my new wave videos in this series. Thanks for watching. You can see more of my videos right here. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you guys in the next one.